The HOA president literally measured my rainwater barrels with a tape measure at 6 a.m., but measuring wasn't enough for Veronica Hartwell. I stumbled outside in my bathrobe to find her swinging a crowbar like a maniac, smashing holes through each of my 6 custom rainwater barrels. Crack! Bright orange industrial paint she'd spray-bombed across everything, mixed with hundreds of gallons of water now gushing across my driveway in a toxic orange river. The metallic clang of crowbar against plastic echoed through the dawn silence. The acrid chemical smell of industrial paint burned my nostrils as I watched $800 of equipment getting demolished in real time. Water and orange paint swirled around my bare feet, cold, slimy, and reeking of vandalism. She looked up from her destruction, crowbar still raised, paint streaking her designer blazer, and actually smiled. "What would you do if someone attacked your property with a crowbar at dawn?" I yelled toward my security camera. Drop your wildest HOA nightmare in the comments. Where are you watching from? Does your state let HOA presidents commit felony destruction? I thought collecting rainwater was environmental responsibility. Turns out it was a $15,000 war I never saw coming. My name is Jake Thornfield, and 3 years ago I thought I'd found paradise in Willowbrook Estates, Colorado. After watching my wife Sarah fight cancer for 2 brutal years, I needed peace. She'd always dreamed of a big garden where we could grow vegetables for the local food bank, her way of giving back even when her body was failing her. When Sarah passed, I bought this place specifically for its 2.3 acres and legal water rights dating back to the 1940s ranch. The rich scent of Colorado soil mixed with mountain air became my therapy. Every tomato I grew, every pepper I harvested for the food bank, felt like honoring her memory. 200 pounds of vegetables monthly, that was my promise to her. Willowbrook Estates marketed itself as preserving rural character while ensuring property values. Most residents bought the dream. Manicured lawns, matching mailboxes, HOA approved everything. I just wanted to garden in peace. Then Veronica Hartwell moved in like a perfectly pressed tornado. Veronica, 47, recently elected HOA president, drove a white BMW that gleamed like a surgical instrument. Former California real estate agent who believed standards create value. She carried an iPad and measuring tape everywhere like weapons, always dressed in business casual, even for Saturday morning compliance inspections. Her obsession? Aesthetic consistency and property value optimization, which apparently meant my legal water rights were now her personal problem. The first attack came on a Tuesday in March. The sharp crunch of gravel under her designer heels announced her arrival like gunshots. She brought the newly created Environmental Compliance Committee, 3 neighbors holding clipboards like riot shields. "Mr. Thornfield," she announced, her overwhelming floral perfume clashing violently with my garden's earthy sweetness. "We need to discuss your water situation." The texture of her manicured nails tapped against my screen door as she presented a 47-page Water Resource Management Addendum to HOA bylaws. My calloused hands gripped the absurd paperwork while morning sunlight glinted off her iPad as she photographed every barrel, every plant, every drop. "Rainwater collection creates mosquito breeding grounds," she declared, ignoring my obvious filtration systems. $500 impact assessment fee, plus 50 monthly monitoring charges. This addendum passed at a special meeting announced via email I mysteriously never received. Democracy in action, HOA style. Here's what made my blood boil. My retirement income was $2,400 monthly. Sarah's medical bills had drained our savings. This property was my only asset. I couldn't afford to move, couldn't absorb these extortion fees. One missed payment meant foreclosure, losing everything Sarah and I built. But Veronica had made a critical miscalculation. See, I spent 30 years designing municipal irrigation systems across Colorado. I didn't just know water law, I understood the entire state's water infrastructure, including some very interesting details about Willowbrook Estates that she definitely didn't know. As her BMW purred away, I walked to my tool shed and pulled out a dusty folder marked Property Survey, 1943. Inside were documents that would change everything. "Water pressure," I smiled, feeling Sarah's wedding ring on the chain around my neck. She has no idea what real water pressure looks like. Veronica's next move came faster than I expected. Thursday morning, she arrived with official paperwork and her secret weapon, Derek Hartwell, her brother-in-law, and the HOA's attorney. Derek looked like every sleazy lawyer from Central Casting, slicked back hair, expensive suit that screamed, "I charge $400 an hour," and the kind of condescending smile that made you want to check your wallet. "Mr. Thornfield," Derek announced, his cologne so thick I could taste it, "you're in violation of state water regulations and HOA covenants. Cease and desist all water collection immediately." The crisp sound of legal papers snapping in the morning breeze felt like a slap. They'd brought a surveyor's measuring tape and treated my property like a crime scene, documenting every barrel with GPS coordinates and timestamps. Veronica's camera clicked constantly, building her case one violation photo at a time. $200 daily fines start immediately, Derek continued, treating me like some confused elderly man who didn't understand big words. "State water rights don't supersede HOA covenants, sir. You drain these containers within 48 hours or we begin foreclosure proceedings." The absurdity escalated beyond belief. They measured each barrel's diameter, height, and water capacity like NASA engineers calculating rocket fuel. Veronica created a violation log, documenting which plants I watered and when. She even claimed my vegetable garden violated ornamental landscaping requirements. While they played inspector, I noticed my mailman Ron Castellanos hovering nearby, pretending to sort mail. After the legal circus left, he approached with the grim expression of someone bearing bad news. "Jake," he whispered, glancing around nervously, "she's targeting 3 other houses with these same tactics. Margaret Wu got cited for excessive bird feeders, Tom Kowalski for parking his work truck in his own driveway, and Elena Rodriguez for her kids' playground being the wrong colors." That's when it clicked. This wasn't random enforcement. This was systematic harassment designed to force people out. Time for my counterpunch. I spent Friday afternoon at the county library, surrounded by dusty legal volumes that smelled like old paper and forgotten justice. The librarian, Mrs. Sophia, helped me navigate Colorado water law databases. What I discovered made my engineering heart sing with memories of my first water rights case 30 years ago. I'd learned then that Colorado's prior appropriation doctrine was carved in constitutional stone, first in time, first in right. Water rights are property rights that transfer with land deeds and cannot be overridden by later agreements, period. My property had senior water rights dating to 1943 rights that legally supersede any HOA covenant under Colorado's state constitution. My grandfather's ranch had been collecting water decades before this neighborhood existed. Derek's fancy law degree apparently skipped the chapter on constitutional water law. I filed a formal complaint with Colorado Water Court that Friday, establishing my legal authority beyond any doubt. Then I installed security cameras around my property because something told me Veronica wouldn't take this news well. My instincts proved correct. Saturday night's security footage revealed exactly what I'd been expecting. Veronica and Derek, dressed in dark clothing like suburban ninjas, were measuring my barrels again, but this time at 2 a.m. with flashlights and clipboards. The audio was crystal clear. "Old fool doesn't know we can foreclose for persistent violations," Veronica hissed, her voice carrying that particular venom reserved for people who dare resist authority. "Just document everything," Derek replied, his expensive shoes crunching on my gravel. "Once we hit 15,000 in fines, we can force the sale." They were building a fraudulent legal case in the dead of night, creating evidence of violations that would justify stealing my property. The metallic click of Derek's measuring tape sounded like handcuffs in the darkness, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They assumed I was just another elderly victim who'd roll over and die quietly. Sunday morning, I called Margaret Wu. Time to build my own army. Veronica's desperation showed immediately. Monday morning brought an emergency HOA board meeting that somehow got scheduled, voted on, and implemented faster than most people order pizza. The vote was 3-2, Veronica, Derek, and her friend Patricia versus 2 neighbors who actually bothered reading bylaws. Their new masterpiece? The Immediate Violation Resolution Protocol, which sounded official but basically meant steal Jake's house faster. Unpaid fines now accrued 18% monthly interest, compounded daily. The thick stack of legal papers hit my mailbox Thursday with the weight of financial doom. Derek filed foreclosure paperwork as a preventive measure, he claimed with that oily smile. Within 5 days, They'd slapped a lien on my property like a scarlet letter. The metallic taste of panic filled my mouth as I calculated 18% monthly interest on fabricated fines. But Veronica's real talent was character assassination. She launched a whisper campaign that would make political operatives jealous. Suddenly, I was mentally unstable and hoarding water like a doomsday prepper. She claimed my vegetable garden attracted vermin and disease to the neighborhood. Apparently, tomatoes were biological weapons now. Her masterstroke? Reporting me to the county health department for unsanitary water storage practices. When the inspector arrived Thursday afternoon, half the neighborhood gathered like vultures at a roadkill buffet. Every barrel passed inspection perfectly, but damage was done. I looked like the crazy old man causing neighborhood problems. The community manipulation escalated beautifully. Safety bulletins warning about West Nile virus breeding grounds. Concerned neighbor meetings at her house with wine and cheese. Insurance companies mysteriously flagging my address as high risk. She'd weaponized neighborhood politics with surgical precision. Meanwhile, I was building my counterattack. Margaret Wu answered my Sunday call like she'd been waiting for this fight her whole retirement. Turned out our bird feeder citation victim was a retired patent attorney with honey badger tenacity and Supreme Court-level legal knowledge. "Jake," her voice crackled with anticipation, "I've been researching our HOA since they targeted me. Want to hear something delicious about Veronica's election?" Tuesday evening at Margaret's kitchen table, surrounded by legal documents and coffee strong enough to raise the dead, she dropped her bombshell. Back in my municipal days, I'd learned that Colorado requires 10% resident quorum for major property votes. Basic democratic protection I'd helped draft for water district elections. Veronica's water addendum vote had 23 residents present out of 312 total, not even close to legal threshold. "Their entire legal foundation is quicksand," Margaret grinned, sliding evidence across her table. "Invalid votes can't override constitutional rights, period." My personal investigation revealed something juicier. Weeks of calling California real estate contacts painted a picture of financial desperation. Veronica faced personal bankruptcy from failed investments. Her gleaming BMW leased. Her house? Underwater on mortgage. Her business? Surviving on commission fumes. She wasn't harassing neighbors for power. She was creating forced sales for survival money. Tom Kowalski and Elena Rodriguez joined our Wednesday night resistance meeting. Tom's construction company gave him insight into property manipulation tactics. Elena's county planning job provided inside access to development applications. Together, we realized we weren't random targets. We were systematic victims of coordinated property theft. "Classic real estate scam," Tom rumbled, his calloused hands dwarfing Margaret's delicate coffee cups. "Create problems, force desperate solutions, profit from chaos." Thursday's security footage delivered my smoking gun. At 3 a.m., Veronica crept across my property carrying household bleach like a suburban terrorist. She methodically contaminated each water barrel, creating evidence for her health department complaints. The audio was pure gold. "We need him gone before other owners discover the development deal." Development deal? My pulse hammered as chemical fumes destroyed weeks of collected rainwater. But her confession was worth every contaminated gallon. This wasn't about water anymore. It was about systematic community destruction for profit. Time to teach her about real water pressure. Veronica went nuclear with a public shaming campaign that belonged in a political war room. She organized a neighborhood safety forum at the community center, complete with folding chairs arranged like a tribunal and a projector screen that screamed official authority. County officials, police, and local media showed up like she'd promised them the story of the decade. The woman had crafted a PowerPoint presentation titled "The Hidden Dangers of Unregulated Water Collection," with charts, graphs, and doctored photos, making my modest setup look like Chernobyl's water treatment facility. She'd digitally edited images showing my barrels overflowing during phantom storms, claiming I was flooding neighbors with toxic runoff. "Concerned citizens have a right to protect their investments," she told Channel 7 News, her voice honey-sweet with manufactured sincerity. The camera loved her crisp blazer and professional demeanor, while I looked like the neighborhood eccentric everyone crosses the street to avoid. Her media manipulation reached artistic perfection. Next-door posts warning about chemical contamination threatening children and pets. Anonymous flyers mysteriously appeared on every doorstep. Stop the water hoarder before he destroys our community. The thick paper stock and professional printing suggested serious money behind the campaign. Personal attacks escalated beyond mere harassment. My truck tires got slashed in broad daylight at the grocery store. Sell and leave appeared spray-painted across my mailbox in that signature orange paint, the metallic chemical smell lingering for days like a threat that wouldn't fade. Then came Veronica's false emergency masterpiece. During her elegant dinner party last Saturday evening, she called 911 reporting toxic chemical odors wafting from my property. Fire trucks, hazmat teams, and police cars descended with sirens wailing, treating my vegetable garden like a Superfund site. No chemicals found naturally, but the spectacle dominated Monday's newspaper. Water collection sparks emergency response. My counterpunch came through patient documentation. Security cameras now blanketed my property with military precision, capturing every midnight visit from Veronica's amateur sabotage crew. Her teenage son Kyle had developed quite the criminal resume-dumping fish, pouring bleach, spreading fertilizer to create algae blooms in clean water. The audio was prosecution-quality gold. Derek coaching Kyle through earpiece radios. Make it smell worse, but don't leave fingerprints. These people watch too many crime shows and not enough engineering documentaries. Margaret's legal excavation revealed the conspiracy Elena suspected, buried in county planning records. Willowbrook commercial development application pending approval. The project required 85% resident buy-in or forced individual sales above market rate. Veronica's failing real estate company held exclusive sales contracts worth millions in survival commissions. She's not harassing random neighbors, Elena explained during our emergency Thursday meeting, spreading development plans across Tom's garage workbench. She's systematically eliminating opposition to the biggest payday of her career. The community began fracturing in Veronica's favor until her safety forum spectacularly backfired. When neighbors asked specific questions about water collection science, she deflected with emotional manipulation about property values and children's safety. Tom demolished her technical claims with actual engineering knowledge. My water quality tests showed every barrel cleaner than municipal tap water. 3 more targeted neighbors approached us afterward, systematic harassment campaigns identical to ours. Anyone with valuable land or strong community ties was getting the full Veronica treatment, a coordinated assault designed to break resistance and force sales. Margaret's ethics complaint triggered a Colorado Bar Association investigation into Derek's obvious conflicts of interest. Brother-in-law attorneys can't represent HOAs while personally profiting from resident displacement. His expensive law degree apparently skipped the ethics chapters. The smoking gun came from my mailman Ron, who'd quietly documented Derek's violation notice deliveries for months. Every citation went to properties with highest development value, a pattern proving systematic targeting rather than legitimate enforcement. Standing at my kitchen window Friday evening, I watched Veronica's crew installing an enormous white tent for tomorrow's garden party. Expensive catering trucks, professional sound equipment, elegant table settings, all positioned perfectly in what I knew was a natural floodplain. Tomorrow's investor presentation would announce neighborhood-wide development approval. Denver executives expected signatures, champagne, and guaranteed profits. They were about to get a water education instead. Saturday morning brought the discovery that changed everything. Margaret arrived at my kitchen table at dawn, clutching a manila folder like it contained the Holy Grail. Her retired patent attorney instincts had led her down a legal rabbit hole that surfaced pure dynamite. "Jake," she whispered, spreading yellowed documents across my table with trembling fingers, "you're not just fighting an HOA violation. You own the entire neighborhood's water destiny. The original 1943 ranch deed buried in county archives under decades of bureaucratic dust granted my property riparian rights to Willow Creek, upstream, including full authority over water flow and distribution." Legal language from the frontier era when water meant the difference between prosperity and death. My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips as the implications crashed over me like ice water. My modest 2.3 acres included legal control of a century-old earthen dam upstream. That dam created the small lake feeding every fountain, pond, and irrigation system in Willowbrook Estates. Every decorative water feature, every green lawn, every investor's promised lakefront opportunity, all existed at my personal discretion. "Perpetual easement for irrigation and flood control," Margaret read from cracked parchment that smelled like old leather and forgotten power. The musty scent of historical documents mixed with morning coffee created an intoxicating aroma of justice. These rights are senior to all property developments, HOA covenants, and municipal regulations. The constitutional bombshell detonated in my chest. Colorado's prior appropriation doctrine carved in granite since statehood made water rights supreme over every other property claim. The HOA's incorporation had illegally ignored existing easements. Derek had deliberately omitted easement protections during legal filing, gambling that nobody would dig deep enough to discover them. Saturday afternoon, Margaret and I hiked the quarter-mile upstream through pine trees and granite outcroppings. The earthy smell of decomposing needles and the sound of rushing water grew louder with each step. We found a simple earthen structure with manual release gates, nothing fancy, just two concrete channels controlled by hand-cranked steel wheels green with decades of neglect. Standing on the dam's concrete spillway, I felt the deep vibration of 2.8 million gallons pressing against century-old engineering. The power thrummed through my boots like a massive heartbeat. Those innocent-looking release gates could legally flood the entire lower neighborhood during irrigation season, which my deed defined as any time I deemed necessary for agricultural purposes. The technical reality made my engineer's soul sing. This wasn't some revenge fantasy Colorado law-mandated annual earthen dam maintenance for structural safety. Neglecting pressure relief could cause catastrophic uncontrolled failure, obliterating the neighborhood instead of temporarily educating it. I wasn't choosing destruction. I was fulfilling legal obligations that protected everyone. The timing was poetry written by the water gods themselves. Clear skies forecast through Sunday. Veronica's garden party. Saturday 3:30 p.m. in the exact center of the historical flood zone. My required dam maintenance whenever structural integrity demanded. Standing there feeling contained water pressure against my palms as I tested the release wheels. The moral framework crystallized perfectly. This wasn't about destroying community. It was about teaching the difference between respecting existing rights and systematic exploitation for profit. Margaret's documentation confirmed my authority superseded every HOA restriction, municipal regulation, and property covenant in the county. Water rights were constitutional bedrock that no private organization could override. The delicious irony almost made me laugh out loud. Veronica had weaponized water regulations against me while her entire development empire floated on water I controlled. Tomorrow's investor presentation promised exclusive lakefront opportunities to people standing in a floodplain I could activate with a simple wheel turn. She'd picked the wrong neighbor to mess with. Tomorrow, everyone would learn about prior appropriation the unforgettable way. Time to open the floodgates of justice. Margaret's dining room transformed into our war room Saturday evening. Legal documents and topographical maps spread across her grandmother's mahogany table like battle plans. The rich scent of her Colombian coffee mixed with the musty smell of county records as we orchestrated tomorrow's water education seminar. Tom Kowalski arrived with engineering surveys and elevation charts that made my irrigation engineer heart sing. Elena Rodriguez brought county code requirements for dam maintenance official documentation that would protect us from any legal backlash. The texture of professional blueprints felt familiar under my calloused fingers as we mapped out every detail. Dam operation isn't rocket science, I explained to my skeptical allies, tracing historical flood patterns on Tom's elevation charts. Earthen structures require annual pressure release for safety. It's basic engineering maintenance that's been legally required since 1943. My photo collection from the 1995 spring flooding showed legitimate seasonal water flow covering exactly where Veronica planned tomorrow's party. Back when I designed municipal systems, I'd learned that proper dam management prevented catastrophic failures that could kill people. This wasn't revenge. It was responsible infrastructure maintenance with perfect timing. Margaret filed formal prior water rights assertion documents with the county, establishing an ironclad legal paper trail proving good faith dam management. The crisp sound of official stamps on legal paperwork felt like justice finding its voice. Every signature created legal protection that Derek's fancy law degree couldn't challenge. Elena suggested selective neighbor notification as both courtesy and liability protection. We targeted families with children and elderly residents, providing 48-hour evacuation notices framed as precautionary safety measures during routine maintenance. The goal was zero human risk while maximum educational impact. Tom's construction crew provided professional-grade equipment portable pumps to control water release rate, emergency communication systems for downstream coordination, and generators for dam gate operation. The metallic clanking of quality tools being organized sounded like an orchestra tuning for tomorrow's performance. Our safety protocol development was military precise. Tom mapped every basement-level area requiring evacuation. Elena coordinated with county emergency services who thought this was routine infrastructure work. Margaret drafted comprehensive liability protection documents that would shield us from any property damage lawsuits. The timing choreography was clockwork beautiful. Thursday, 6 a.m. Legal notice posting begins. Thursday, 8 a.m. Direct neighbor notifications. Friday, 3 p.m. Media briefing about water rights demonstration. Saturday, 2:45 p.m. Final safety verification. Saturday, 3 p.m. Required dam maintenance commences. My internal struggle with potential property damage to innocent neighbors nearly derailed everything until Margaret reminded me of the bigger picture. Temporary flooding versus permanent community destruction, Jake. Sometimes you have to break a few eggs to save the farm. The technical specifications were engineer perfect. Dam capacity: 2.8 million gallons at current dangerous level. Maximum safe release rate: 50,000 gallons per hour. Flood duration: 3 to 4 hours for complete party area coverage. Expected water depth: 6 to 18 inches in the party zone. Expensive mess, not dangerous disaster. Research revealed the perfect irony of Veronica's party theme: waterfront elegance. She'd installed temporary wooden dance floors over grass, rented white fabric pavilions, and positioned delicate catering equipment at the lowest elevation point. Her promise to investors? Exclusive lakefront development opportunities. My moral framework crystallized around Sarah's memory. Standing in her memorial garden that evening, I explained my plan to her headstone while the scent of her favorite roses filled the mountain air. She'd want me to protect our neighbors from exploitation, I whispered, touching her wedding ring on the chain around my neck. The community benefit angle was crucial for media messaging. I planned to use tomorrow's attention for positive education about water conservation, propose neighborhood rain collection systems, and establish an environmental engineering scholarship fund in Sarah's name. This wasn't destruction, it was community protection with educational value. Margaret's coffee brewing during our late-night planning sessions created the perfect atmosphere for conspiracy. The sound of papers rustling as we studied legal precedents mixed with Tom's quiet explanations of flood management. My weathered hands traced drainage patterns on maps while Elena verified county notification requirements. The discovery of Veronica's elaborate party preparations through my security cameras was almost too perfect. White tents rising like targets in the floodplain, expensive catering trucks arriving with fragile equipment, professional lighting installations in areas that would be underwater by 4 p.m. tomorrow. She has no idea what's coming downstream, I murmured, watching her oversee final preparations through binoculars. The woman was literally setting up her own destruction while planning mine. Friday evening brought my final preparation ritual. I visited Sarah's grave as sunset painted the Rocky Mountains in shades of gold and purple. The cool mountain air carried the scent of pine and possibility as I asked for strength to do right by our community. Tomorrow they learn what water really means, I promised her memory, feeling the weight of both legal authority and moral responsibility. This was about protecting everything we'd built together. The stage was perfectly set for tomorrow's demonstration of real water pressure. Veronica's panic hit Thursday evening when she discovered my dam maintenance notice posted at the community center. The crisp white paper with official county letterhead might as well have been a death warrant for her investor presentation. By Friday morning, she'd called an emergency HOA board meeting with the desperation of someone watching their empire crumble. Derek researched emergency injunctions like a man possessed, his expensive cologne mixing with the acrid smell of panic sweat as he frantically called every judge in the county. But Colorado courts don't issue restraining orders against constitutionally protected water rights, a lesson his law degree apparently never covered. At 6 a.m. Friday, Derek served me with an emergency cease and desist that looked official but carried all the legal weight of a grocery store coupon. The thick paper stock couldn't hide the fact that no legitimate court would stop required infrastructure maintenance, especially with 72 hours notice to all affected parties. This constitutes willful property destruction, Derek threatened, his voice cracking like a teenager asking someone to prom. We'll file criminal charges for premeditated flooding if you proceed with this terrorism. The bribery attempt came Friday afternoon when Veronica arrived at my door with a checkbook, and the kind of desperation that makes people do stupid things. Her usually perfect makeup was smudged, her designer blazer wrinkled, and her hands shook as she offered $25,000 cash to postpone dam work just 1 week. "You can withdraw all HOA violations, drop the foreclosure, and I'll even throw in a public apology," she babbled, her floral perfume unable to mask the metallic scent of fear. My security cameras captured every word as she essentially confessed that all previous legal actions were bogus harassment. Her community pressure campaign reached hysterical levels. Mass emails to residents warning about domestic terrorism disguised as maintenance. Social media posts calling me an unstable veteran seeking revenge on innocent neighbors. She encouraged people to call police about premeditated property destruction, while her own son was caught on my cameras attempting to vandalize dam equipment Thursday night. Kyle and 2 friends had tried disabling the release gates with bolt cutters and spray paint, creating evidence that would make any assault charges stick. The metallic grinding of tools against steel echoed through mountain air as teenage criminals followed mommy's orders. Sheriff's deputies arrived within minutes. Trespassing, vandalism, and tampering with critical infrastructure carried serious felony potential. Derek's attempt to have charges dropped revealed more family corruption. "Boys didn't understand the danger," he pleaded with arresting officers, while my security footage showed Kyle receiving detailed instructions through earpiece radios. 3 generations of Hartwells apparently shared the same criminal DNA. Friday's media manipulation attempt backfired spectacularly. Veronica scheduled her own press conference claiming I was an unstable veteran targeting innocent neighbors with environmental terrorism. But local reporters had already researched Colorado water law after my Thursday briefing. Her emotional appeals couldn't overcome constitutional facts and engineering necessity. Meanwhile, I maintained perfect public composure while final preparations proceeded with military precision. Tom's crew quietly staged equipment near the dam site Friday morning, their professional coordination a stark contrast to Veronica's amateur panic. County Dam Safety Inspector arrived for his scheduled visit, confirming immediate maintenance was legally required for structural integrity. The inspection revelation was beautiful irony. Inspector Martinez issued an official safety order requiring weekend water release due to dangerous pressure levels from recent snowmelt. "Neglecting dam maintenance is criminal negligence," he explained to confused reporters. "Mr. Thornfield isn't choosing to flood anything. He's legally obligated to prevent catastrophic dam failure." Elena's emergency services coordination was flawless. County officials thought this was routine infrastructure work because that's exactly what it was. Emergency personnel were briefed on timing and safety protocols without any mention of garden parties or real estate schemes. Professional water management deserved professional emergency response. Margaret accompanied me to Derek's office Friday afternoon, her legal documentation making him visibly sweat through his expensive suit. "You can't use restraining orders to prevent legal obligations," she explained with the patience of someone teaching remedial law to a supposed attorney. Derek realized his entire strategy was built on constitutional quicksand. The community awakening accelerated beyond Veronica's control. 17 neighbors now actively supported my water rights assertion after discovering their own harassment evidence. Friday evening's informal gathering at Tom's garage revealed systematic targeting patterns that made our resistance look like a neighborhood revolution. Friday evening brought perfect sensory buildup. Wind picking up through pine trees made the dam water lap higher against containment walls. The fresh, clean scent of mountain snowmelt mixed with Veronica's party preparation chaos visible across the floodplain. My hands remained steady on dam controls during final inspection, while party spotlights illuminated tomorrow's disaster zone. The final legal protection was ironclad. Margaret filed comprehensive documentation with every relevant authority. Insurance companies were notified of required maintenance. Law enforcement was briefed on legitimate infrastructure operations. Every liability concern was addressed with professional thoroughness Friday 11 p.m. I watched Veronica's crew installing final tent components in the exact flood path, their work lights creating a surreal theater of approaching justice. Weather forecast confirmed clear skies for Saturday's water education seminar. Tomorrow's lesson would be unforgettable. Saturday morning arrived with crystal clear skies and the kind of mountain air that made everything feel possible. I rose at dawn to check the dam one final time, feeling the deep vibration of 2.8 million gallons pressing against century-old engineering. Water level had reached critical maximum. Overnight delaying maintenance would risk catastrophic uncontrolled failure that could obliterate the entire neighborhood. Tom's crew arrived at 8 a.m. with professional flood management equipment that gleamed like surgical instruments in morning sunlight. Margaret brought final legal documentation protecting everyone involved, her manila folders thick with constitutional authority that no HOA lawyer could challenge. The crisp mountain air carried the scent of pine needles and approaching justice. Veronica's final preparations created perfect irony visible from my kitchen window. Caterers arrived at 9 a.m. with $15,000 worth of delicate set-up white silk pavilions erected directly over the seasonal flood route like elegant targets. Expensive sound equipment positioned at the lowest elevation point would become the first casualty of water education. Everything must be perfect for the investors, Veronica's voice carried across the floodplain as she directed placement of crystal stemware and linen-covered tables. Her designer heels clicked against temporary wooden flooring that would be floating by 4 p.m. Environmental reporter Sarah Sophia arrived at 10 a.m. for our scheduled water rights interview, her camera crew positioning on high ground with perfect views of both dam operations and party preparations. The metallic click of professional photography equipment sounded like justice finding its voice through media documentation. Elena coordinated final resident safety measures with military precision. Families with children were evacuated to the shopping center for precautionary afternoon activities. Elderly residents moved to the community center for emergency preparedness demonstrations. Tom posted volunteers at key observation points with radio communications linking every position. Margaret's legal documentation was bulletproof. Final papers filed with county authorities established my complete protection from liability while confirming required dam maintenance. Sheriff's Department acknowledged legitimate infrastructure operations. Every possible legal challenge had been anticipated and neutralized with constitutional bedrock. Professional flow meters installed overnight would document controlled release rates for any future legal proceedings. Emergency shutoff systems tested perfectly during dawn verification. Medical personnel staged at the community center stood ready for potential injuries, though flood depth would barely reach adults' knees. The ironic timing coordination was poetry in motion. Veronica's investor presentation, 4 to 5 p.m. featuring waterfront development opportunities. My dam maintenance window, 3 to 6 p.m. for required pressure relief. Perfect overlap for maximum educational impact about who really controlled neighborhood water resources. Derek's final desperate gambit arrived at 1 p.m. an emergency court order that turned out to be completely fabricated. No judge was available Saturday, and legitimate courts don't issue restraining orders against constitutional water rights anyway. His expensive legal education apparently never covered the difference between real authority and wishful thinking. The community gathering momentum was beautiful to witness. Neighbors began arriving at observation points by 2 p.m. mixture of supporters wanting to see justice and concerned residents needing education about water law. Local environmental groups documented this historic enforcement of prior appropriation doctrine with professional enthusiasm. Sensory details intensified as 0 hour approached. String quartet tuning instruments in the pavilion below created haunting melodies that would soon be drowned by rushing water. Expensive catering aromas mixed with mountain air while champagne glasses were arranged in precise rows across the flood zone. Sunlight glinted off crystal and silver like diamonds marking targets. County Inspector Martinez provided final technical authorization at 2:45 p.m. Dam structure requires immediate pressure relief for public safety, he announced to gathered media. This is required maintenance, not optional property management. His official statement would protect us from any subsequent legal challenges. Standing at those manual release controls, feeling Sarah's wedding ring on the chain around my neck, the moral framework was crystal clear. This wasn't revenge. It was education about respecting existing rights while fulfilling legal obligations that protected everyone's safety. Margaret's conversation with Martinez confirmed what my engineering background already knew. Earthen dams need annual maintenance cycles to prevent catastrophic failure. The alternative to controlled flooding was uncontrolled dam collapse that would destroy lives instead of just expensive party equipment. Reporter Sophia's interview captured the perfect soundbite. Water law protects communities from exploitation by establishing constitutional priorities that no private organization can override. Technical education wrapped in accessible language for viewers who'd never heard of prior appropriation doctrine. Final countdown began with military precision. 2:55 p.m. All safety systems confirmed operational. 2:58 p.m. Last visual confirmation of Veronica greeting Denver investors in the flood zone below. 2:59 p.m. my hand steady on century-old release controls that would teach everyone about real water pressure. At exactly 3 p.m., I began the required dam maintenance that would change everything. 3 p.m. exactly. I turned the professional release valves with ceremonial precision, the metallic grinding of century-old steel echoing across the valley like a church bell announcing justice. 50,000 gallons per hour began flowing downstream with the deep rumble of controlled power that made my engineer's soul sing. Reporter Sophia's camera captured both the technical operation and the approaching wall of mountain water with professional clarity. Beginning required dam maintenance for structural safety, I announced into her microphone, my voice steady as granite. This is legally mandated infrastructure work, not personal retaliation. 3:15 p.m., party guests noticed unusual water sounds approaching through pine trees, their champagne conversations pausing as the distant rumble grew louder. Veronica dismissed concerns with nervous laughter that carried across the floodplain. It's just the decorative fountain system cycling, nothing to worry about, gentlemen. Denver investors admired what they assumed were enhanced water features, while Veronica's presentation continued in the pavilion. Tom's spotters radioed from observation points. Water entering floodplain right on schedule, depth increasing steadily. 3:20 p.m. first water reached the party area as a gentle stream around pavilion edges, the crystalline mountain flow creating temporary creeks through manicured grass. Caterers noticed dampness under expensive buffet stations, their white uniforms absorbing moisture from rising groundwater. The string quartet continued playing Mozart while water lapped at instrument cases like an incoming tide. Veronica remained in complete denial, her voice rising an octave. Minor irrigation overflow, absolutely nothing serious. The water features are simply more robust than expected. 3:25 p.m. water depth reached 4 inches throughout the party area with the inevitability of natural law. White silk pavilion draping began wicking moisture upward, creating abstract watercolor patterns as expensive fabric absorbed floodwater. Investors lifted their Italian leather shoes, asking pointed questions about evacuation procedures while Veronica frantically dialed Derek. "Stop this immediately," she screamed into her phone, her perfectly applied makeup beginning to streak in the humidity. "This is deliberate terrorism, not maintenance." 3:30 p.m. The flood arrived in earnest as water depth hit 8 inches and continued rising steadily across the entire party zone. Catering tables began floating like elegant boats, $15,000 of gourmet spreads scattering across the floodplain. Sound equipment sparked and failed with electrical pops that punctuated Veronica's escalating panic. Guests fled to higher ground in their designer clothing, champagne glasses abandoned in rising water that reflected party lights like scattered diamonds. The scene was simultaneously beautiful and satisfying, nature reclaiming artificial elegance with constitutional authority. 3:35 p.m. reporter Sophia provided live narration of water law enforcement in action, her professional voice capturing the historic moment for posterity. What we're witnessing is the enforcement of century-old water rights that supersede all private property agreements, including HOA covenants. The camera captured Veronica standing ankle-deep in floodwater, screaming at departing investors who were more interested in dry land than real estate opportunities. Her white blazer was soaked, her designer heels ruined, her entire development scheme drowning in mountain snowmelt. 3:40 p.m. I arrived at the flood observation point with a megaphone, providing calm educational commentary to the gathered crowd of 50 neighbors. "This is controlled maintenance of critical infrastructure," my voice carried across the water with engineering authority. "The alternative would be catastrophic dam failure that could destroy our entire community." Margaret stood beside me with legal documents proving absolute constitutional authority, her presence radiating legal confidence that no amount of HOA harassment could challenge. Tom supervised emergency equipment while Elena coordinated with county officials who confirmed this was legitimate infrastructure work. 3:45 p.m. The confrontation everyone had been waiting for. Veronica stormed uphill toward us, soaking wet and furious beyond rational thought, her carefully constructed facade dissolving like her expensive makeup. Derek followed with useless fake legal papers, both of them creating perfect visual metaphors for corrupt authority meeting constitutional bedrock. Live media coverage captured the historic moment, HOA president versus constitutional water rights holder, with 50 witnesses and professional documentation proving who really controlled neighborhood resources. "You've destroyed everything," Veronica shrieked, water dripping from her ruined clothing. "This is criminal terrorism." "Ma'am," I replied with engineering calm, "this is required dam maintenance. Perfectly legal under Colorado constitutional law." Derek waved his worthless papers like surrender flags. "We have court orders." "Those are fabricated documents," Margaret replied with legal precision. "No legitimate court issues restraining orders against constitutional water rights." The crowd murmured approval as truth overwhelmed manipulation. Reporter Sophia captured every word while County Inspector Martinez provided official confirmation of maintenance necessity. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced to cameras and neighbors, "this demonstrates why water rights matter. Constitutional protections exist to prevent exactly the kind of systematic exploitation you've witnessed here." 3:50 p.m. My mic drop moment arrived as Veronica's development scheme literally and figuratively drowned around us. Prior appropriation means first in time, first in right. My water rights are senior to your property schemes, your HOA harassment, and your criminal sabotage. This is what happens when you mess with constitutional law. The flood continued rising around her ankles while justice flowed downstream. By 6 p.m., the controlled flood had receded, leaving behind soggy pavilions, waterlogged catering equipment, and the complete destruction of Veronica's development dreams. The Denver investors departed in rental cars, their Italian leather shoes squelching with every step, promising never to return calls about Willowbrook commercial development. The immediate aftermath exceeded my wildest hopes. Derek faced Colorado Bar Association ethics violations that ended his legal career within months. Kyle's vandalism charges led to community service maintaining the very dam he'd tried to sabotage. Most satisfying of all, Veronica's real estate license was permanently revoked for systematic neighbor harassment and fraudulent legal threats. Margaret's documentation proved our complete legal protection. Every action had been constitutionally authorized, properly noticed, and professionally executed. County officials praised our exemplary infrastructure maintenance that prevented catastrophic dam failure. Insurance companies paid flood damages without question since we'd followed all requirements perfectly. The community transformation was revolutionary. Within 2 weeks, 17 neighbors filed harassment complaints against the HOA, leading to complete board restructuring. Tom Kowalski became president on a platform of constitutional rights and community protection. Elena Rodriguez serves as secretary, ensuring all future votes meet proper legal standards. Margaret established the Willowbrook Constitutional Rights Clinic in her dining room, offering free legal assistance to neighbors fighting HOA overreach. Our case became the gold standard for property rights protection, with lawyers from 3 states studying our documentation methods. The environmental legacy honors Sarah's memory perfectly. Colorado State University partnered with us to create the Sarah Thornfield Water Rights Education Center, where engineering students study constitutional law applied to community protection. The scholarship fund has already supported 5 students committed to defending water rights from exploitation. 6 months later, Veronica appeared at my door, humbled, bankrupt, working at a garden center after losing everything to her own greed. "You saved me from becoming a monster," she said quietly. "Thank you for stopping me before I destroyed more lives." Even former enemies can find redemption through constitutional education. The ripple effects continue spreading nationwide. Our story inspired communities across America to research their own rights and resist systematic harassment. Legislative hearings cited our case when strengthening property owner protections. 5 states introduced prior appropriation protection acts, preventing HOA interference with constitutional rights. Today, my garden produces over 400 pounds of vegetables monthly for the food bank. Sarah's dream of feeding families in need flourishing beyond her wildest imagination. Every tomato grown, every pepper harvested proves that protecting individual rights strengthens entire communities. The dam requires annual maintenance now performed with community celebration rather than resistance. School children visit during field trips, learning about water cycles, constitutional law, and how individual courage protects everyone's freedom. The floodplain has become an outdoor classroom where democracy demonstrates its enduring power. But this story isn't unique across America. Ordinary people face similar battles against petty tyrants drunk on imaginary authority. Next week, I'll share Maria's story about how she used adverse possession law to reclaim her stolen driveway from an HOA that thought property theft was legal. Spoiler alert, Constitutional law has some beautiful surprises for bullies who don't do their homework. Standing in Sarah's memorial garden tonight, watching stars emerge over the Rocky Mountains, I feel her presence in every growing thing around us. We protected our community, honored constitutional law, and created institutions serving future generations. Water always finds its level. So does justice. And sometimes both arrive with the unstoppable force of natural law, washing away corruption to nourish new growth. Drop your wildest HOA nightmare in the comments below. Let's see who's fighting the most ridiculous petty tyrants. Your story might be featured in an upcoming episode. And smash that subscribe button for HOA Stories to join thousands of viewers learning how constitutional knowledge defeats neighborhood corruption. Knowledge is power, and power flows to those brave enough to use it. Remember, they can't steal what they don't understand you own.
That's all for today's HOA Madness. If watching justice serve itself made your day, smash that like button, share your thoughts down below, and make sure you're subscribed. More outrageous neighborhood showdowns are just around the corner.